The hero of our today's episode is the famous Kazakhstani painter Kanafiya Telzhanov, a representative of Kazakhstani painters of the 1950s. He was recognized and famous during his lifetime and took special pride in his title of People's Artist of the USSR. Recognition of his talent on the scale of such a vast country indicated that he was a truly outstanding painter. We are lucky to have a wonderful opportunity to get acquainted with the creative heritage of this artist. Svetlana Sultanovna, today we are talking about Kanafiya Telzhanov. He is often described as the founder of Kazakhstani monumental painting. Could you give us your opinion on that subject? We need to begin this discussion by noting that he was among the first artists who came to Kazakhstan already as professional painters, having graduated from the Repin Institute of Painting and Architecture in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. In the homeland, these canvases we're looking at were a discovery. The artists were discovering our country, unveiling it using the acquired knowledge. Indeed, the scale of his paintings is monumental. Almost all of them have an epic tone to them. His canvases are filled with deep meaning. The artist adhered to soulful and warm themes. I would like to recall the story of the work Jamal, which is kept in the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow. It was created in 1955. Upon returning to his homeland, the artist depicted this motif: a girl sitting on the grass and a fraction of a ute peg. He named the girl after his mother. So much warmth put into this work. You have very accurately characterized this female figure in the portrait Jamal. What other motives and topics was Telzhanov interested in? We remember his hard path from orphanage to Almaty, and of course the fact that he didn't stay in Leningrad. Everyone asked him, why? You could have stayed there, have a wealthy life. To which he answered, I love my homeland, I am a Kazakh, the son of my land. Just like a hero of Greek mythology, Antaeus, who was drawing strength from the Mother Earth, the artist can create on his motherland. Only there can you draw your talent, get inspired to create masterpiece. You reminded me of the quote people use when speaking of Telzhanov. It goes, using colors, he paints with emotions. Such a precise expression to characterize the artist. As for the academic background of art, how did the painting techniques that he learned in St. Petersburg manifest in his works?
Как конкретно живописные приемы, которые он использовал при создании картин, как они проявились в его работах?
Вы знаете, он прежде всего профессионал. Это отчетливо видно на его рисунках, которые есть в нашем собрании, да? Вместе с тем.
Above all, he was a professional. This is clearly seen in his paintings in our collection. On top of that, he feels the time. Of course, the themes of his works are national games, for example, cockpit fragments from the life in Kazakhstan. But with a closer look, you will notice an amazing transfer of color and light in all his canvases. Moreover, this light in his works comes directly from the nature itself. No doubt, he's an artist of the highest skill. He recorded the entire history of the people in his works. His painting Sounds of Dombra is very interesting in this regard. For the first time, this work appeared at an exhibition in Moscow, and the Moscow art critic Hunter wrote that this is an unfinished work. But only now we understand that this was the only way to convey these sounds, the sounds of a national instrument via these flashes of light. When talking about Telzhanov's work, we can say that he is not only an outstanding master of Kazakhstani art, but also a recognized artist of international scale. Tell us something about it. Certainly, I have already said that his works are in the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow, and the exhibitions that take place abroad also support this notion. During summer, when there are no auctions, Christie's provide its premises for art exhibition. We were privileged to be a part of such exhibition. All views and reviews were focused on the work of Kanafiya Telzhanov. British people spoke a lot about the country with expressive and meaningful words. Indeed, if we look at his works, he can paint both static and dynamic images, filled with passion and force, for example, his previously mentioned painting cockpit. He is a truly versatile artist. His talent helps foreign countries to better understand Kazakhstan. Not just everyday pretty images, but all the energy, rush and magnificence.
Зарубежным странам воспринимать Казахстан, и воспринимать не так вот красивенько, как-то буднично, а вот со всей этой внутренней энергией, со всем этим натиском и красоте.
Thank you very much for the informative conversation. We'll continue our acquaintance with the work of Kanafiya Telzhanov.
В 1960 году Kanafiya Telzhanov создает свое грандиозное произведение.
In 1960, Kanafiya Telzhanov creates his most grandiose work, grandiose in design, embodiment, format, scale, and of course in the choice of theme. The artist chooses the national game cockpit as the main theme. Translated into Russian, goat threshing. The main symbolic prize for the rider is the carcass of a goat. Pay attention to how the artist constructs this amazing composition. First of all, he breaks academic foreshortening and construction both in the figures of people and in the figures of animals. There is a young man in a red shirt in the center. He is a compositional, semantic and color center. The bright red shirt holds the entire color scheme. An incredible moment of tension is conveyed here. The whip is falling down from the open palm of the right hand, with which he lashed his horse. This moment of apogee, tension, excitement, and desire to win is conveyed by absolutely incredible techniques and artistic means. The viewer looking at this painting is not just an outside witness, but a direct participant in the action taking place here. Notice how the artist works with color. Seemingly chaotic color strokes, in fact, are not random. Each of them finds its own accent, its own location. And in the aggregate, all this color mess conveys the incredible flair of an artist who perfectly understands the art. An interesting moment in this painting is the theme of the connection, meeting of the past and the present. Because the ancient stone statue is already leaning towards the ground, under the weight of time and epochs that this ancient figure has overcome. It seamlessly connects with the power line extending beyond the horizon. That is, in fact, the idea of a meeting between the past and the present is expressed by the artist through the preservation of national traditions, through the ancient Kazakh national game.
В случае через традиционную древнюю казахскую национальную игру. Другим выдающимся произведением Kanafiyi Telzhanova является...
Another outstanding work of Kanafiya Telzhanov is called Atomican, or In the Land of the Ancestors. Note that the main character here is a man riding a horse around this endless steppe. The ancestor's steppe, with which he is connected by blood and spiritual ties. And here it is interesting that this principle and this technique is a kind of leitmotif of the entire generation of the 1950s. All of them address the topic of the inextricable connection between man and nature. And this principle, which is characteristic of all artists of the generation, is actually a visualization of the worldview of the nomads. A nomad living in the steppe and moving from place to place doesn't think of himself outside the cosmos, outside the universe. This is exactly how we perceive the main figure of this painting. Another Telzhanov's favorite motif is depiction of horses. He wouldn't miss the chance to portray the rider hurtling on his horse, or as in this case, proudly seated with noble stare, looking over the vast expanse unraveling to his eyes and heart. This is characteristic of Telzhanov. The period of the late 50s, early 60s was eminently productive for Kanafiya Telzhanov. During this period, he creates his best artworks, including this wonderful piece presented to your attention, The Sounds of Tombra. Just notice the remarkable pictorial means used by the artist. He manages to create the feeling and illusion of extraordinary quietness. The evening-setting sun, the steppe, tranquility, peace and harmony fill the entire being of a person living in his native steppe, in his native natural surroundings. The artist over and over again promotes the idea of inextricable relationship between man and the surrounding nature. Indeed, the life and existence of people framed in this composition are saturated with peace and quietness. This setting evening sun creates an illusion of peace and quietness, disturbed only with the sounds of Tombra, the sounds that came out to be the full-fledged character of this composition. Astonishingly, the artist seeks to convey music through means of color. Just look at this shade, it's free, light as a breath, like the sounds of Tombra in the evening steppe.
Легкий, как дыхание, как звуки домбры, звучащие в вечерней степи. Замечательно по своей трогательности и
Another artwork, remarkably heartwarming and touching, is called For the First Time. The artist, as if comprehending his own feelings, recalling first steps in his creative endeavors, depicts a little girl performing before the audience for the first time. You see the accompanist supporting her, giving her encouraging words, and she takes the plunge to get herself together and perform. In this little shy girl, the artist sees a powerful potential that will eventually be realized.
которому предстоит раскрыться в будущем. Создав композицию под...
While creating the composition called Friends, the artist relied on the subtle humor of the characters. Take a look at what is happening in the space of this painting. We see two villagers, two elderly ladies, who found themselves in an urban environment. No doubt there is a change in their habitual way of life, the habitual worldview, when instead of the endless steppe expanses, they are suddenly surrounded by the vertical lines of the high-rise buildings of the city's micro-districts, and as if looking for support, pushing friends even closer together. That's why he named the painting Friends. He showed just how awkward they feel in this aligned environment. It is interesting that painting his contemporaries, the artist most often relied on his personal impressions of the person he embodied in his works. Notice how unusually he builds the composition in the portrait of a contemporary of the artist, famous Kazakh composer Muhamedjanov. The author of the music for Kazakh operas is the main character. When we think of a portrait, we expect to see the character, the model, in the center of the composition. But in this case, the artist, as if by accident, not intentionally, shifts the image of the composer to the lower right corner. Instead, the center stage is given to the piano. Piano is the main instrument, the main part of life, with which composers and musicians create their music. And in this painting, this instrument is very important. It is the main part of the composition. And notice this active red color appearing in the background. Red color, since ancient times, is the color of energy, is the color of creative potential, power, latent or explicit, which manifests itself in music. The artist, like a skillful psychologist, used these subtle details to fully reveal the character of his contemporary, whom he knew personally, and whose talent he sought to depict to the fullest.
Которого он знал и стремился показать масштаб его таланта. Интересно, что есть одна тема, к которой Телzhanov...
There is another topic to which Telzhanov has repeatedly returned to. It appears in its different variations and, as a rule, combines in a composition two figures on horseback announcing some important and incredibly joyful message. These paintings were called Victory, as presented to your attention, or Heralds of Victory. Look at the way the artist conveys this incredible joy, the message that they carry, the first messengers of victory. One of them rips off his tie, the second proclaims this message shouting, "Victory, victory." This is an incredible magical soaring, the happiness of overcoming those 4 terrible years of war, the incredible courage of the people who worked in the home front, fought in battles in the name of their homeland. The artist expresses this spirit of patriotism in the images of these boys on their horses. In the painting Hunting with the Golden Eagle, we again see the image of a flying horseman. The figure of the rider is leaning on the horse. The hooves are lifted off the ground as if the horse is floating in the air. In general, the artist often depicts flying horses. This is due to his training in the workshop of the outstanding battle painter Mikhail Avilov and fascination with the creative style of the famous artist Moiseenko. But of course, this special opportunity of using static painting techniques to convey incredible dynamics is expressed by the artist not only in the construction of figures, but also in an unusual compositional structuring. Look, here the light is expressed in a strange, unusual way. We see emptiness in the center. There are 3 main accents, denoted by the artist lined up in a triangle. Those are the image of a flying horseman, the image of a fleeing fox, which stands out in contrast against the background of white snow, and the top point is a flying golden eagle, preparing to dive on its prey. This triangle, this incredible expressiveness and dynamics articulated in details in periphery of the composition, this background of a winter landscape, expresses the feeling of a person's connection with nature and traditions. Hunting with the golden eagle is a tradition that came from the depths of centuries and has survived in Kazakhstan to these days. Creating the idea of the people of Bozaral, the artist conceived and embodied it as a triptych. The central part of the triptych shows people who lived in the immediate vicinity of the Aral Sea. These are the people who were fed by the sea, who became part of this seascape, who lived with it in complete harmony. Look at how the artist constructs this unusual composition. He shows 2 figures, a male and a female. The man turned his back to the viewer. He is facing the elements, an incredibly powerful element that captures the entire space not only of the canvas, but as if overflowing outside the frame. This incredible element, the sea, is a symbolic embodiment of life. Yet again, this painting is the dialogue between man and the elements, characteristic of the artist. In the case of the nomad, man and the steppe, or in the case of the fisherman of Bozaral, man and the elements. One of the characteristic features of Kanafiya Telzhanov's technique is his skillful control of the color. Free, wide, dynamic strokes express the incredible power of the elements, which are the main character of this marvelous painting. In the process of his creative evolution, Telzhanov managed to achieve one of the difficult tasks facing the artist, to find and develop his own recognizable style, which made it possible to include his creative heritage in the golden font of art in Kazakhstan. And today, thanks to his motives, in which he developed both a specific topic and depictions of his contemporaries, the connection between the past and the present can be traced. Thanks to his heritage, we are able to trace the manifestation of universal human values, so devotedly and honestly conceptualized by this artist throughout his creative path.